Right, and that is where we start our discussion. The hashtag is AM Live. You can tweet at Trevor Ombija at AM Live. You can call in as well. We'll try and sample some of your views during this broadcast. Let me introduce my guest to you, beginning from my immediate left, the Ombudsman Emeritus, Dr. Otiende Amollo, who is also the Rarieda Member of Parliament. Thanks for making time for us. And there's Dr. Miguna Miguna, a lawyer and also a governance expert, and also ran for Nairobi gubernatorial seat as an independent candidate. And then we have Honorable Mithika Linturi, Meru Senator, and Honorable Kimani Wamatangi, Kiambu Senator. Thanks for making time for us. Honorable Otiende, I'll start with you because you're in my immediate left. Since we last spoke, nothing has changed. Everyone is still maintaining their stand. No elections on one side, the other side, the elections will go on, despite having met Wafula Chebukati. In your own experience, how does this play out? Because it's the one thing that almost all Kenyans are asking me. Sasa nini itafanyika? How does this play out then?
Thank you. I think it's unfortunate because we had the opportunity to mend this country. We had the opportunity to have meaningful conversations. That opportunity has been squandered. I think it's been squandered in a number of ways. One, the invitation by the chairman of IEBC to the main presidential candidates to have dialogue, I think was squandered because the President Uhuru was not interested. I saw that finally he met the chairman, clearly a meeting that was superficial, a meeting that was already, I think Tuju had said early in the day there would be no meeting. Then there was a casual meeting at Harambee House for 30 minutes. Those are not the kind of meetings or conversations we needed to have. Two, the IBC chairman himself clearly finally came out to express the same concerns that we as NASA had been expressing. The only tragedy is that he is in a position to do something about them, not to complain. But so far, he is merely complaining and not doing what he ought to do. And so I think moving forward, clearly, we're in that unfortunate situation where the one side it's insisting it will have some sham elections. That's not an election that we need. Elections are supposed to be like a wedding. It's supposed to be an occasion to unite people with the great expectation for the future. It's not supposed to be like what we are facing now, which is more or less like a funeral. Clearly, we will have proper, legitimate elections in future, not what we will have on Thursday.
Okay. Dr. Miguna Otiende Amollo is saying that Wafula Chebukati is just complaining. This is the same person who also said that unless there are changes in the secretariat, he cannot guarantee a free and fair and credible elections, but he's still in office, and we have just hours to the elections.
Thank you very much, Trevor. And of course, he also warned that if there were no changes, that you would basically throw in the towel. So he said two significant things, that we cannot have free, fair, and credible election, and that if nothing happens, he would throw in the towel. Nothing has happened, and he has not thrown in the towel, which means that this man is not a manager, he's not a leader, he cannot organize a free election. But more significantly, picking on from what Dr. Otiende said, let me say that unlike many people, I actually like what is going on. Let me tell you why I do like what is going on. For 55 years, we have glossed over the crisis in leadership. We have glossed over the fundamental betrayals of the Kenyan people since independence. We've glossed over electoral malpractices and fraud. We've glossed over serious inequities and inequalities. And finally, we have to confront them. We have to confront them through a crisis, through a clash. The crisis must naturally produce something better. If we did not have this crisis, we would have continued to have a conspiracy of the elite over fundamental flaws in our national structure, the way governance is done in this country. So, but will we have a free, fair, transparent, verifiable, and credible election on October 26th? No, we cannot have. Is the environment free? Free of intimidation, free of threats, free of coercion, free of uneven ground? The answer is no. The environment is not conducive to that. Is the current arrangement fair? Fair to all the players, fair to the citizens of Kenya, fair to the IEBC workers, fair to Chibukati himself, fair to Akombe, fair to... Because those are Kenyans. No, it is not. Is it fair to NASA and Raila Odinga? No, it is not. How is the president, Uhuru Kenyatta, behaving? He's behaving like an emperor out to conquer. And who is he going to conquer? He's threatening Kenyans with Chemta Makuni. He's threatening Kenyans with violence. He's threatening Kenyans with death. He's saying that on October 26th, you cannot leave your home.
That's only for those who intend to disrupt the elections violently.
He said, if you are not... No. Listen to his language. He said, if you are not going to vote, stay at home. What if I don't want to vote, but I don't want to stay at home?
As long as you don't cause any violence,
no, but you don't have to cause violence. What if I want to be able to demonstrate that I don't want this election? That also is a constitutional right. He's telling me I cannot do that. That is dictatorship. That is despotism. Okay. And that we cannot have in Kenya.
Okay. Mithika, is that your reading as well? And of course, starting from the fact that Dr. Miguna says we cannot have a free and fair elections at this point. And this is just hours to elections.
You know, I thought Miguna would, is a senior citizen that I really respect.
I'm not a senior citizen. I'm a senior lawyer.
That I respect, not by definition of citizenship by age, but I would have expected to engage in a more, I really focus on a more reasonable way of dealing at the matter that is before this country, other than taking partisan divides in the resolution of the problems that Kenya finds itself in. I agree. The problem that Kenya has, in my view, right now, is more of a political problem than it is legal. And when I really listen from Miguna, and having known Miguna and his background, I am almost persuaded to believe that this team really is not interested, is not keen for a peaceful Kenya. And why I say this is that Miguna talks of an elite conspiracy without trying to expound or explain who these elites are. The elites are the Linturis, the Otiendes, and Miguna, the Urus, and the Kenyatas, and everybody else. Because if we were to accuse anybody of any conspiracy, I would have personally accused the Nasam Brigade and Fraternity. Because when these are the people that have conspired to use and abuse the goodwill that they have from the young men and women of this country in terms of giving them political support, by trying to transfer that support to hooliganism and pretend and hide under the freedom of demonstration and the picketing, without really telling the people, yes, it's a democratic right, but these democratic rights are also supposed to be exercised in a manner that does not infringe on other people's rights, and that even as you demonstrate, the law as is the freedom, the right to demonstrate, is in a way that we are supposed to demonstrate peacefully and unharmed. So when I see responsible senior citizens and leaders in this country trying to mobilize a country to break the law, I really feel sorry. The other thing is that even the meetings they didn't been asking for, I am not able to see whether, or to learn whether they are really in good faith and what the intention is. Because the independent, in IEBC being an independent commission and being guided by Article 249 of the Constitution of Kenya, and where their independence is really anchored, I would say that what I understand is that the independence of these institutions cannot be compromised. And that is not to say that they are not accountable. So even as we seek in discussions with these people, we really must be in a position to determine whether whatever we seek to discuss is a matter that is meant to interfere with their independence, or is to make them more accountable to the citizens and the Republic of Kenya and the people in terms of how they conduct their affairs.
Okay.
But in the circumstances, honestly, doom is looming for this country, and it's really unfortunate. And I would rather ask and plead with the NASA people, as it is your constitutional right not to vote.
Yeah.
It is also my constitutional right as a citizen, because I must vote on 26th.
Okay.
Because I must clear my conscience to the extent that, since I understand you want us to take this country into a zone that is not defined in law, that has no provision, after the 1st of November, let me exercise my right to say, at least I participated in my small way, in my literal way of trying to get a solution for this country.
Okay.
And this was if the NASA team and Otiende Miguna was coming with a proposal to tell us how we saw the political crisis that is there in the country, but within the confines of the Constitution and the law, I will not have a problem.
Okay.
But telling us to go into a slaughterhouse without really asking whether what we are waiting for is a guillotine, is a knife, or whatever it is, I don't agree.
Okay, Wamatangi, what do you make of it? At this point, and Chebukati himself has said that he cannot guarantee a free and fair election. Shouldn't even the president himself be concerned? Because he said that the first time he won. So it means even this second win that is coming might be illegitimized, because Chebukati himself has just said that he cannot guarantee it, and we have hours to the election.
Well, if I would start just by quickly answering that and make one or two comments on what I wanted to say. I think that message was intended for NASA, and largely they should have been able to consume, absorb and understand the message of Chebukati. I mean, they are really, if you ask me, and ask any Kenyan who logically interprets the current scenario that we are in and is intent on having a solution to it, the people who have caused any or the situation that Chebukati would interpret to mean that he would be anxious of us being able to have a free and fair election are NASA. Because if you look at everything that we in Jubilee have done, and as expressed by the president yesterday in a personal meeting with Chebukati himself, he said, I have no demands. We have no demands as Jubilee. We understand the role of the IEBC, we respect the constitution and the law, and so we are ready for a free, fair election that is going to be conducted in accordance with our laws and oversighted by IEBC, that's all. And so, if now you compare that with the message from NASA, that there will be no elections, we're asking our people not to go and vote, there is a message that has been kept somewhere waiting to be unveiled or unleashed by Raila on Friday, as he said that, wait for my, on Wednesday. He said that he will be releasing a big message on Thursday, keeping people anxious for that matter. So you would be asking yourself, who in this case amongst all the players would be the consumer of that particular message and act right? And my answer is simple, it's NASA, because they have tried to curtail, to barricade the process of having a free and fair election. Now, let me say one or two things quickly. You see, this constitution that we have here, in recognition that in the exercise of our democratic right, it is necessary for us to have a general election to renew and choose our leaders, renew our destiny and direction, have provided a very clear formula in which we do that by including, specifying the time and dates. It says every 5 years that the Republic of Kenya, on a certain date and day, in even month, is going to hold a general election. That is a recognized fact of our exercise of democracy.
But should we stick to it even when the condition is not conducive?
Let me make my point, Trevor. Let me make my point. Now, in recognition of that, even without disputing who and who are the players, or what they want and what they don't want, we must first realize that it is a constitutional requirement of the exercise and process of democracy that every 5 years, and where we have either a dispute or an issue or problem, the same constitution has provided for that. And what I'm saying is this. So we find ourselves in a situation where, after we held the elections on the 8th of August, the Supreme Court, as also envisaged, annulled the election and has given further directions on the date of the election. Okay. But then, the people who had gone to court quickly sabotages the same process in contempt of court and says now we are not going to have an election. And remember, and mark those words, they have not said that we are boycotting the election. And they have actually been themselves very clear that we are not boycotting. We are saying there will be no election. And when they say that, I want you to remember, Trevor, and our viewers this morning to remember, what the wording of the court order that was given by Justice Maraga read. Yeah. He said that he's ordering IEBC to go and organize fresh elections. So, on the question of who is intent and active in derailing the process of our democratic exercise of voting, you have your answer. It is NASA. Okay. Now, if you ask me as a country, that final question, are we able to have a free and fair election on the 26th, Thursday this morning? My answer is an absolute yes. Okay. Absolutely, because of this reason. As my colleague here has said, nobody is going to stop NASA from doing what they want to do, not go to the ballot box and cast their votes. But, and this is what I want to be clear in view of what Miguna was saying, that the president is being dictatorial. Let's first remember that our constitution has recognized the president as the president and head of state. And that requires of him, at times when it is necessary, to give direction to the country on which way to go and guard and protect the rights of other Kenyans. And so when he says that he will not bother anyone who does not want to go to the ballot box, but will act within the law to defend the right of the Kenyan who want to go and vote from being either interfered with, curtailed by those not intent on going, then we have to act, and he has to act for that matter. And so I want our viewers to understand that that is important. And lastly, Trevor,
very briefly, let's make short points so that we get more time.
If anyone would be listening and ask yourself really, we Kenyans, and I would want to pose this question to NASA, if outsiders, if envoys born and brought up in other countries who have just come here for a period to represent the interest of their people here can see, they can feel, they have sent a warning that you are driving this country to the ditch, what sentence would you pass on somebody still this day and time, after the experiences we've had since 2007, 2008, who would still stand on a podium and dance to some dombolo music and say chini kwa chini and stand up and say there'll be no elections, we'll mete out violence on people who, and you've seen what they've done.
And many people would argue that the envoy statement applies to both sides. But let me bring you Otiende Amollo here. And there's a lot of accusations coming towards NASA's side. Mithika says the team is not interested in a peaceful Kenya. And the question that also Wamatangi has brought up, that NASA is selectively applying the ruling of the Supreme Court. You were told to go back to the elections within 60 days. Now you're not going back. And you said there's no election. Can't you be held in contempt of court?
Thank you. I respect Senator Mithika Linturi and I respect Senator Kimani Wamatangi. What I don't understand is how two ordinarily sensible and very intelligent gentlemen can see the problem and refuse to address what would be the solution and go with what is supposed to be what the doctors would call a palliative, something that is temporarily supposed to make you think that you are solving the problem, but you are not. What we must address is very simple, and I'll start with the court order. The court did not order that we must hold elections within 60 days. the court ordered you must hold elections within 60 days in strict compliance with the Constitution and the law. And therefore, the primary question to ask is not, are we holding it within 60 days? The primary question is, are we holding it within the Constitution and the law? What NASA did was to take the issues that were raised in court, the issues which were raised in the judgment, and reduced them to the 12 irreducible minimums. In other words, what the court observed and caused it to nullify those elections is what NASA raised for address, so that when they are addressed, then you can hold elections within 60 days in compliance with the Constitution and the law. What has happened is that in addition to NASA's, the European Union observer team themselves had their own issues, and I think there were about 18. It is interesting that the chairman of the IBC himself raised his own irreducible minimum in 2 memos to the CEO. None of them were ever addressed. And now he's added to them by his statements last week, when he's now capturing the essence of what he had raised. So virtually everybody else had raised them. Now, we're in a situation where the Jubilee team, the IBC team, and the envoys would rather let us say, now we must hold elections within 60 days without addressing those fundamental issues. You cannot hold elections within 60 days without addressing those issues. That's the first point. And therefore, it is not that elections must be held within 60 days. It is that elections must be held within 60 days if we are prepared. If we are not prepared, what are the options? I see 4 options. The first option is within the powers of the chairman of IBC himself. Once the Supreme Court in 2017 made the decision, the chairman looked at the decision in 2013, because that decision went into the question, what if there's to be fresh elections? And he interpreted it to say that in that case you restrict it to 2 candidates and then you proceed with the elections. And if under that judgment, if one of the candidates was to pull out, then automatically the 60 days period ceases and you start a fresh period of 90 days with fresh nominations. That is what happened when Raila Amolo Odinga pulled out on 10th of October. It means that automatically, by reasoning of that judgment that was relied on, then the 90 days period starts running. That period is not affected by the subsequent decision by Justice Mativo. That is one, and it's an option available to the chairman as we speak. In other words, today, the chairman can lawfully apply that reasoning and we have fresh elections and we examine their preparedness. 2 is to consider a consent order for the chairman as IBC to move the Supreme Court, not NASA. It's not the business of NASA. To move the Supreme Court and ask the Supreme Court, ask the parties to consent to a variation of that order by consent. That, gentlemen, clearly we cannot do this as ordered by the court. Let us have much more time. Let us agree on the time frame within the Constitution, and then let us agree on the preparedness. That he can do. Thirdly, it is also possible for, without the consent order, IBC itself going to court and asking the court that now that we cannot lawfully hold the election within 60 days, and the chairman stated that, what is our option? Okay, it's not for the parties, it's not for Jubilee, it's not for NASA, it's for the IBC. But if then it is clear, and the IBC chair has come to the conclusion that he cannot hold legitimate, fair, and lawful elections, as he stated, then he must throw in the towel. He must say, gentlemen, I cannot, and resign, and then we pick it from there. Now let me come secondly to the statement of the diplomat that Mithika Linturi has referred to. I think it's interesting. First of all, of course, the statement by the diplomats it cuts across both, both sides. But there's some things that the diplomats have done recently, including in this statement, that betrays their leaning. It is clear that what the diplomats are interested in is holding elections, not holding legitimate, lawful elections. It is not surprising that after the elections on 8th of August, all of them gave that election a clean bill of health. It means they have no moral authority to say anything about preparedness, about the lawfulness of the election, because they got it wrong and yet they cheered it up. They should actually be the last to comment on these matters. And if you want to know they got it wrong, there are 3 points you need to note. First of all, they are so concerned with the president ascending to the amendment laws. They have fallen into the trap that Jubilee laid. I've said in this show before that the amendments that were brought to Parliament were not brought so that they could be effected. They were brought so that they can be used as a bargaining chip. That NASA, you drop your irreducible minimums, then as Jubilee we will not pass or the president will not assent to the bill. They are still concerned with that. That's a red herring. Why? They are saying they've spoken to the president not to assent to the bill. That is so irrelevant. Those bills were passed by a partisan parliament, both Senate and the National Assembly. They were taken to the president, I think, on 13th of October. Yeah. It does not matter whether he signs them or not. By operation of law, under Article 115, Sub-Article 6, on the expiry of 14 days, the bill stands enacted. The president is presumed to have assented to the bill. So the envoys are basically pleading with President Uhuru when he's looking at them and obviously sympathizing with them, because he'll sit back and say, I won't assent. Because once 14 days lapse, and I think we only have 3 more days, 3 or 2 days, they will be low. And the envoys are busy telling us that's what they're persuading the president to do. Secondly, they are saying anybody with an issue in terms of dates, like NASA, should go to court. They miss it completely. NASA has no basis of going to court. The constitution is clear. You only go to court if you want to petition the election of a person, not in this circumstance. And lastly, when then the envoys said, and I think we all listened to them, and then they say that the issues that were raised by Chebukati are easy to address because it's in the domain of the political parties. That is completely hogwash. Chebukati said his commission is not working. He says he's been reduced to a robotic situation where he makes proposals, no one wants to debate, they simply vote. And of course, Jubilee would have no issues with the election date because they have the majority of the commissioners who just vote robotically. Chebukati said he needs his own staff to step aside. Then the deputy president says, now we are ready to have Ezra Chiloba and the others step aside. A day or two later, we hear that Chiloba has now taken leave. They are being controlled by Jubilee. So they would have no issue. They want us to have elections. They do not want us to have legitimate elections.
Okay. Dr. Miguna, is that your reading? What do you make of the 4 options that Otiende Amollo is giving?
I agree with Otiende Amollo because he has given cogent reasons. Reasons based on logic, reasons that are based on facts. Both President Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto are in a ritual, a coronation ritual, and the diplomats are escorting them there. We are not going to legitimize that ritual. Let me prove to you with concrete facts why this is a coronation ritual. The IBC has carried full-page ads, and it says 10 things IBC will do differently during the fresh presidential election. Number 1, they say IBC will provide names and coordinates of all polling stations. That's mistake number 1. They're not talking about GPS, they're not talking about GPRS. In fact, they say specifically that they will not provide that. Number 2, they are saying KIMS kits to transmit image of 34A and 34B. Text data will not be transmitted from polling stations. Mistake number 2. It was very clear that the only way you will be able to guarantee authenticity of the information is when you program the KIMS kits to transmit only once both text and image from the polling station directly to the constituency tallying center and to the national tallying center. The moment they interfere with the KIMS kits and they make KIMS kits only transmit image and not text, that interferes with the verifiability and credibility of the transmission. Number 3, they say national returning officer. The national returning officer chairman will only announce the results after physically receiving all Form 34A and signing a handover of Form 34B. Mistake number 3. The court was very clear, and in fact it was just last week. The court told them the transmission must be electronic of both the Form 34A and B simultaneously, and that they are not supposed to change anything. So this reference to physically actually is an implementation of the law that is sitting in front of President Uhuru Kenyatta that he has not signed. That is the language of the law that has just been passed, the irregular law. Number 5, political party ICT agents will be will be corroborated and will participate in the verification. I don't know what that is. These people cannot even write in English. That means absolutely nothing will be corroborated. How do you corroborate political party ICT agents? How do you corroborate them? So that means they don't even know what they're doing, leave alone what they ought to provide in terms of credible election. The agents were supposed to be allowed to capture the image of all forms. We know that in the August 8th election, they were not allowed. And they are not saying they are going to allow them. And in fact, if we have a credible IBC, there would be no need for that. But we know we don't. Number 5, returning officers will project results as they are keyed into the Excel sheet prior to printing. Now you know, Trevor, that Excel sheet can be changed. Excel sheet is not tamper-proof. The only thing that is tamper-proof is scanning. And that is what the court said, the Supreme Court. So again, they are back to their Excel sheet that you can change at any time and that were altered, that led to the nullification of the August 8th election. Number 6, Form 34B and C. Standardization of Form 34B to have security features. Form 34C will contain all whatever. They are not referring to Form 34A. Why? Yet the Maina Kiai decision was very clear. It said the results from all polling stations is final. So the form that is critical, the form that is definitive is Form 34A. That Form 34A is not referred to in this ad, not even once. Because you know why? That is where the mischief is. That is where the alteration will occur. That is where the rigging occurred in August 8th and is going to occur again. So they are not talking about having Form 34A's scanned and the results numerically entered. Number 8, increase capacity. They say increase, again, poor dicta. By installing Safaricom SIM cards in all KIMS kits in addition to the existing Airtel and Telecom networks. How does that secure the election? We know what Safaricom did, and we know what NASA's concerns are. We cannot dismiss the concerns of a major player in these elections by simply repeating the same mistake. Chief Justice Maraga had said, you come back with the same mistakes, we will nullify these elections. They are not just coming back with the same mistakes, they are compounding the mistakes. Now the last one they say, no, the second last, Form 34B, returning officer will be required to print out Form 34B and give them out to all agents for verification. What is that? The agents must verify the form as completed at the constituency tallying center. They are supposed to then sign. It's not about printing. After they sign, you scan them, then you transmit them. You don't print them. Print them from where? You're not supposed to do anything with those results once they are scanned. In fact, according to what Musando said before he died, he said the moment you scan both the text and the image, the KIMS kit can no longer be used. It is deactivated automatically to prevent you from tampering with it. Now that you are going to be able to print again from the KIMS kit, it means that the system now can be tampered with. Okay. The last one, accredited media will be allowed live coverage at the constituency tallying center. They are not talking about the polling station, which is the final result for a presidential election. And then they are talking of accreditation. Accredited, who will be accredited? And the issue is this. In order to make the election tamper-proof, you must allow all the agents to capture the information, not just the accredited media. So as you can see, there is a plethora of errors. In fact, all the 10 points are erroneous. What does that tell you? It tells you the commission is not ready to conduct a credible election. Okay. It tells you that they are not meeting the requirements of the Supreme Court. It tells you that this election will be nullified again. It tells you the recklessness and the willful blindness that is driving people at the commission.
Okay.
It also tells you the commission is being controlled, as I said last week, and I'm going to repeat here. The commission, according to Commissioner Akombe, is being micromanaged by the PS, Internal Security, and the Jubilee Majority Leader at the National Assembly, Aden Duale. This is what is happening.
She didn't specifically call out their names, though.
That is
Let's
why
just make that clear.
I have information. I can tell you that. Okay. I can tell you that for a fact. That is why when Chebukati met the president yesterday, notice two things that you will not notice with meetings with the Honorable Prime Minister. The meetings are always at the IBC. Chebukati calls the meetings, and Chebukati did call for the meetings.
Okay.
And the candidates go to him. He's the referee. What happened yesterday? He went to a candidate at the candidate's office and waited for the candidate. And then what happened? The candidate greeted him like some shamba boy and passed and sat. Okay. Quickly, 2 seconds and he sat. Right. And then the meeting was over.
Okay, I have to take a short break, but I'll come back with Mithika and Wamatangi. I know you have a lot to respond to, and I can also see a lot of response here, hundreds of texts coming in and tweets, and Usha will be reading some of them in just a bit. Let's take a short break on People and Politics. We'll be back with more. All right, thanks for staying with Decision 2017. This is the point on AM Live. We're still continuing the discussion. It was still going on even during the break, and there's a lot to respond to, and I'll just dive straight into it before we go into a lot of response on Twitter, and Usha will be reading some of them in just a bit. But for now, Mithika, you wanted to respond to all this. One of the biggest things that's coming out is that IBC is being controlled by Jubilee.
I'm almost losing my thought process.
Let's make it brief points so that we get to the point really fast.
I will endeavor to do that because Miguna has serious potential of misleading the country. Okay. And I respect him for his opinion and his interpretation of the advert that was put by IMBC. And I want to take him on to demonstrate that honestly, in my view, he's not trying to espouse the right things that the NBC is trying to do. For example, I'll pick
the ad and tell me where
yes,
I'm
this is the hand. But from ad number 1, I heard him saying that the IMBC is not giving in the GPRS. Of the
GPS.
The GPS.
GPS of the polling station and GPRS of the...
But now they are giving the coordinates. So when you get the coordinates of a certain or a particular place and feed in those coordinates to the GPRS system, you will be able to locate where that particular place is. That is the truth. And when you say the actual place where the Kim's kids will be are not given, I don't agree with you. Number 2, the other area that I don't agree with you is that you are saying that from that the form A and B are supposed to be transmitted simultaneously. That is what he said. Yeah. It is not possible to transmit from that form A and that form B simultaneously, because that form that form A is a form that contains the results of every polling station in this country. And in those polling stations, people will have voted, done their tallies at different times. And that is when they are supposed to transmit those results, because the results are supposed to come from the 40,000 and above polling centers. So from that,
show us in the ad where that is to be transmitted.
From that, form B is a total, is a sheet that will show that out of the 150,000 polling stations in Awendo or in whatever constituency, right? This polling station gave this. So it's a total. So these forms will, and they have different people that are in charge. In the polling station, the presiding officer is in charge and is the one that has the authority and mandate to transmit. Okay. a constituency tallying center, who is a returning officer of the constituency, is a person that will transmit from that form bill.
Okay.
He talks about printing.
Yes.
Printing, if I hand him clearly, which I think I did, deal with the R. He talked about the printing of Form 34s for verification.
Yeah.
So Form 34s are being printed because it continues a total of from every polling station, give it to the agents so that the agent can be able to check, right, do his own maths and confirm whether whatever is posted in Form 34B is a reflection of what was in the constituencies.
Okay.
And if they're in agreement, then sign them, give them back, agree with them, then the returning officer, constituency returning officer, will do the total and then sign and do what is required and then transmit. So, Miguna, it is not possible to have that transmission happening or occur simultaneously.
Okay.
The other thing is that, you know, at the state that we are in, I don't think is the best time for us to continue discrediting IMBC. Chebukati, I think, is somebody that is now due for an award. Because assume a situation whereby the national returning, or the chairman, who is the returning officer of the presidential election, throws in the towel and goes, where do you leave the country? At times, great men, nationalists, are recognized at such a state whereby, despite all the challenges that they face, will stand up for a national cause and say that I will do my best, I will not, let me clear my conscience, do what I can do to hold the country together.
Okay.
And for that reason, I personally feel that other than continue insulting, intimidating, or telling him, calling him names, I think Chebukati is doing his best. He's human, just like Kine Mondeos.
Okay.
If this thing was given to Miguna would have run away. Just like this girl called, or Lindy called Akombe. Akombe, who pretends, right, to be a nationalist, a Kenyan, takes a pandiem from Kenyan taxpayer, goes to Dubai to check on the ballot printing, and flies away to America. And then is left and talking about Kenya outside there. I also call upon Parliament now to start seriously vetting when whoever is taken there to check the patriotism, to try to check a way, create a system of trying to know which people, given whatever duty, will not run Kenya banning to get safety to other places.
Okay.
And this is why I tell you, Miguna, when Kenya starts banning tomorrow, or Amollo will be in Kenya here and will be banned together. It doesn't matter. Right? Who we are or where we live.
We will make sure it is not banned.
Okay.
Please
All
do.
By the demagogues.
Please
Let's
do.
bring in Wamatangi. Wamatangi, let's try and be brief so that we keep the conversation moving.
Now, Trevor, let me say a few things. First, because in the course of our lives, and as we do what we do in our day-to-day living, sometimes we forget that at times like this, that indeed history gets written. And I can tell you for a fact that the situation that we're in now and the things you see unfolding daily, at one time in the very near future, will be matters and issues that will be clearly recorded in our history. And generations then will want to understand what is it that we did at this time, either to find ourselves where we are and how did we navigate and get out of it. And so first, for purposes of that record of history, let me be on that record, saying that it is true that we are in a political crisis now. Political. And I also want to add further and say that the political crisis we are in now is artificial. It is man-made. It is not a process that has led us there, that honest players played this game and found ourselves at a point where we have to negotiate our way out. We have been intentionally led where we are. And that's why I want to say, for that purpose of that record, that let let my record read that NASA at one time and the leaders who are in NASA now will have to answer to this country. And I would want to begin by answering some of the things that were said here by Miguna in response to this advert. And more so, I would want to respond to them very lightly, and recognizing that it's a fait accompli. Because already they have made up their minds that they are not participants in this election. And so commenting about what will happen or what IBC will do is non-consequential. It's inconsequential for them. And there is nothing that would have been easier for NASA to do to address all those issues if they were honest players in this game, and they would proceed to IEBC or meet the chairman himself and raise those issues that they're raising now. But because they do not want to do that, and I want to correct Miguna in what he said, that Chebukati was so wrong that he went to meet one of the candidates. The record is very clear. I'm sure, Trevor, you have it even here in your archives, that actually sometimes in a few months before, when the IEBC was renewed, they paid a visit to the office of the Prime Minister in Upper Hill. And they went there and sat and they were talking and they were having coffee and tea there in his office. So it is not inconceivable, it is not actually illegal either, that the chairman of IEBC would either meet or consult his stakeholders in an election, for example, political party leaders or candidates at different times.
But the perception that it creates is that it's really sort of leaning on one side.
Well, I don't want to give it credence because it is inconsequential. It's the content of what is discussed, and it is public.
Okay.
It is aired, so it can be seen. But you see, looking at all these issues that have been raised here, you will note, Trevor and all Kenyans watching this morning and have these newspapers, that all the issues addressed here, and most of them are the issues that NASA took to court. Their main case was premised on the question of transmission. And so when on issue number 5 here, IEBC addresses the issues of Kim's kit, their case in court was about how did the chairman arrive at a resort without configuring and telling Form 34, reconciling Form 34A and Form 34B. So they address that from on the issue number 4. Every single item here, including the location. You remember they were saying that there are some fake polling stations that are not known where they are. That's issue number 1 here. They're saying that they will provide all the names and coordinates. I mean, it is every issue that they raised, and that is why I started by saying that it is simply because they have been dishonest. For them, this is a means to an end.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter what happens midway, whether it is Kenyans who lose their lives, whether it is business that comes to a standstill, whether the economy suffers, as long as they get what they want to get.
Okay.
But let me also comment on and answer
Briefly.
something that was said by my friend Otiende Amollo. And this is on what Chebukati said. And I like it when he said that he respects me, he respects Miguna, and we also respect you, Mheshimiwa Otiende Amollo. But it's also important to be honest, because Wakili, and he's a lawyer, he's made his case, prosecuted it, and gave a judgment on Chebukati, because you see, Chebukati was very clear in his statement. He laid all the issues he laid, but finally he said that IEBC is preparing for the election and that they are ready for the election. Indeed, he went as far as saying and pledging his own conscience to patriotism and said people are even expecting him. And I read a lot in that statement that people are expecting him to resign, but he will not. That's what he said. And I believe, and this is my own personal opinion, that message was intent and directed to particular players in NASA who may even have put him under pressure to resign. And that is why it is not coincidence. When you find in every debate that we have here, reference is made heroically to Akombe, because it was their hope. It was actually their agitation and pressure that probably Chebukati would have followed. And that is why you find that they respond in disappointment that he did not resign at that particular time. Okay. But nothing would have been easier for Chebukati at that particular time, even now, to resign. But he said he is not. He is willing to go and ensure that the election, in spite of those issues that he raised, and those are the issues that they're saying they're going to be dealing with.
Okay.
And so I want to say to my friends in NASA, and as a Wakili there said, that Raila pulled out of the election. There was a reference in the decision of the Supreme Court, and it is them lawyers, actually, who first came on air all the time educating us that those comments or those issues as raised in the Supreme Court, they described them very well, and they even educated us, calling them obiter dicta, saying that these are normally comments made by a judge. And then the ruling comes out, which is now in form of a judgment, saying that this is how the scenario should play out if and when there's a fresh election concerning other candidates. And so, you know, trying to bring in that other story about another 90 days coming in is precisely, and that's why he said he prosecuted and gave judgment. It is precisely indicative of what they had hoped, and that's what they both said, that after 1st of November, they were hoping that we would find ourselves in an unknown territory, in uncharted waters, where we would have, in quotes, what they presumed is a constitutional crisis. But I want also to say, as a finalized, Trevor, that even if we were to go to the 1st of November, if the election was to be pushed ahead, and it will not, there will be elections on the 26th, we would still not have a constitutional crisis. Our constitution is very clear. Once you have elected a president and he has been sworn into office, he can only move out of that office upon election of another president and at the time of handover. Okay. And that is our law. And so they should not continue to drum up and create this hypothetical scenario that they want to put the country in anxiety, hoping that their games would culminate in that scenario. So I want to tell them to ensure that they, because they are not voting, they conduct themselves civilly. I don't know what they want to announce, but I'm a Kenyan like all other Kenyans. Conduct themselves civilly. If Miguna is saying they want to go to the shop to buy milk, go and buy your milk, go and take it in your house or wherever you want to take it, but let Kenyans come out and vote. And I want to urge Kenyans this morning, we have a date with destiny on the 26th to determine where we want our country to move. And we have to come out in large numbers and defy and stand up to be counted at this particular moment to ensure that we right what is wrong in our country. And ensure we give ourselves a closure to this artificial stalemate and open the doors to a tomorrow whereby we can be the ones who will be saying this is how we want to be led and governed. We should not let, Trevor, that the likes of the leaders of NASA, who right now are not only intent, but they're hell-bent on ensuring that this country either goes down with them or they come on top of everyone else. That's a mission. All right, Otiende, I want to bring you in here. And let's make a bit of short statement so that we have more time to discuss other issues here. But then there's a lot coming out. Number one is that your NASA is hell-bent on making sure it's either their way or the highway. And also, those issues that are being raised by the IBC, were those part of the complaints you had, like Wamatangi is saying? Let's just make it brief. Yeah, thank you. I'll be quite brief. I agree completely with Senator Wamatangi. That we are in a man-made political crisis. But the people who have made it is Jubilee. Had they agreed with us that we hold the IBC to account in terms of what it must do, in terms of our irreducible minimum, we'd have sorted this out and we'll be having elections within 60 days. So it was either your way or the highway? No. NASA does not have a way. As I told you earlier, Trevor, what NASA reduced were what was deduced from the judgment. But the Jubilee took the position that they have no demands on a formal meeting. But behind the scenes, they control what IBC does. That's why we are in this problem. And I think the question to ask is,
it's understandable that the president and the deputy really want to continue having power. Is it so fundamental that Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto must capture power at the cost of the country? If the president was being a statesman, he would have stepped back and said, this country is much more important. Let us find meaningful ways of dealing with this matter, rather than giving decrees as the commander-in-chief of this country. And I think that you'll have noticed in recent times that this idea of terrorizing the minds of Kenyans is increasing. I've even seen my friend, Wamatangi, in military, that kofia, that beret. And you will see that the Jubilee team, which is in close consultation with some guys called the Nairobi business community, are constantly in military fatigue. It is supposed to intimidate. It is supposed to persuade us that the commander-in-chief is in charge. Jubilee, I'll show you the picture. It is here. I'll show it to you. I'll actually show you before you leave. I will show you. But let me make the point. The point is this. When Senator Wamatangi asked why we did not raise this, then he means he has not even read NASA's 12-point irreducible minimum. Much of what is contained here is already there. And as Senator Linturi says, that we should not continue discrediting IEBC. IEBC does not require us to discredit it. They do enough to discredit themselves. I mean, from what the chairman himself says, from what Dr. Kombe has indicated. But let me say just 5 quick things. Yeah. I don't want to repeat what Miguna said, but I want us to really look at this. Okay? Look at number 1. They say they will provide the coordinates of 40,883 polling stations. In the Supreme Court, they told the Supreme Court that 11,000 polling centers could not be covered. They are making no mention of it here. Now they are saying they'll cover all. This is what they said before 8th of August. Come 8th of August, they said 11,000 could not be covered because there was no coverage. They are not saying anything about that coverage now, which means they are lying to Kenyans with a straight face. Look at number 2, training. The training they are giving their members is exactly the training they gave before 8th of August, despite the fact that the Supreme Court pointed them in the right direction. That training, not only is it erroneous, it is not gone on in half of the country for obvious reasons, because more than half the country does not support this hurried election. Look at number 5, the KIEMS kit. They are saying they will provide KIEMS kits. They forget that in the Supreme Court, it was found that of the 41,000 KIEMS kits, only 5 worked, only 5 transmitted results. No one has told us up to now how over 40,000 KIEMS kits could not transmit results. But all they tell you is that they will now transmit. They forget that we demanded access to the KIEMS kits to the servers, which was denied. Instead, they said that the servers were asleep. Then they said that they will do an audit. To date, no one has seen the copy of that audit, to date. And so we are supposed to go back to that election despite not knowing what went wrong. Look at number 7, National Returning Officer, which for some reason they are not calling chairperson of the IBC. They're calling National Returning Officer. Obviously, somebody is contemplating Chebukati's absence. But what is important is that they say that this person is supposed to receive the results physically, which means they are changing the mode of election from an electronic to a manual one.
Absolutely.
In contrary to the Supreme Court finding. And then they say that they will be receiving. There's nothing like verification. There's nothing like cross-checking, merely receiving. Look at number 2 up there. The returning officers will use Excel sheets. What happened in the last elections is that those Excel sheets, the problem was that the 34 Bs would be printed, signed, and then people go, and then the returning officer adjusts the results by printing yet another one, and then signs themselves without, the agents. So they're telling us they will repeat exactly what happened. What the Supreme Court said, these things are supposed to be in prescribed forms, printed with security features, not on Excel sheets. And then they say that they are allowing the returning officer to open ballot boxes. You cannot open a ballot box once you have sealed it. Once you seal the ballot box in the presence of the parties and the agents, you cannot open it. Only the court can open it. Now they are telling us that they're giving this carte blanche role to the returning officer. They are stating an illegality on the face of a newspaper. If you look at the increased capacity of the servers, they are saying they will add Safaricom in addition to Airtel and Telcom. That is a lie. In the last election, Safaricom, Airtel and Telcom were all involved. The problem was not whether they were involved. The problem was that the results were then transmitted to the servers, which were abroad and which are still abroad. And the results never got back. Okay. So what are they telling us? Let me say this. I think that where we are, we're in a very delicate situation. And you have a choice whether you want to hurry elections so that you superficially say we held elections, or whether you want to hold legitimate elections. You cannot do this as IBC. What they should be addressing is what they themselves have told us. The chair has told us that the commission is dysfunctional. Yeah. Is that covered in this advert? Akombe has told us clearly that at least 4 of the commissioners are under direct instructions from State House. Have they addressed us here? The chairman told us he needed a number of staff to step aside, at least 5. None of them have. Have they addressed that here? Why have they not addressed the question of the KEMS kit? We're in a situation where those KEMS kits that they are purporting to use have also been ordered to be surrendered to various election courts throughout the country. I'm in at least 2 petitions where that order has been made. So what KEMS kits are they talking about? And yet in some of them, in some of the counties, these kits have been submitted to those courts. But how are they addressing? I have just seen that the court now reinstated Jirongo, and his bankruptcy order has been lifted. So that does mean he will be in the ballot. How do you address, and this is my closing, you are talking about a KEMS kit here, and the IBC is on record as telling us that that kit has been configured only to have 2 candidates, and that the rest of the candidates, their result will be transmitted through those images. The law requires that the names of all the candidates must be captured in the KEMS kit. Even before we go to election, that you are telling us you are unable to comply with the law. Why would you be part of a charade like this? Why would you want to do something that is so clearly superficial, so clearly illegal, yet you have the option to sit back and do the right thing?
But
yes, if Jubilee was well-meaning, if the president is well-meaning to this country, if the diplomats are well-meaning, they would hear the voice of reason. They would echo what court was said, what civil society has said, what various religious persons have said. They would say that, gentlemen, ladies, let us sit back and agree on how to have meaningful elections, not necessarily a fraud that we are facing on Thursday.
Dr. Miguna, let's talk about solutions here. Even if we're given the 90 days, will this change?
Trevor, first of all, I would like to respond quickly to some of the things that my colleague said. Yeah. Remember when Chebukati addressed the nation a few days ago, he said he has issued yellow cards to both the former Prime Minister and the President. And he said that if nothing changed, he will issue them with a red card. Nothing has changed that he has not issued a red card. This is not an unfair criticism. What is the benchmark? What exactly concretely has changed? Now, my friend Linturi said, without dealing with the ad, because I went to the IBC ad. This ad was not generated by the media companies and were not generated by me. But I pay taxes that they misused to advertise this. Yeah. They needed to deal with this. They have not dealt with it. But he has said this about simultaneous transmission. He completely misunderstood me, like they always do. What is meant by simultaneous transmission, and this was very clear in the decision of the court, the petition. The text, the text result at the polling station has to be keyed into the KEMS kit and transmitted simultaneously with a scanned copy of Form 34A. You do that again with 34B. That is what I meant by simultaneous. I did not mean that you transmit 34A and 34B simultaneously, because they are being generated at 2 different locations. Yeah. Now, of course, my friend, they have a swipe against Dr. Kombe. But we must agree that each one of us has a right to determine the kind of threats that we are receiving and to make a decision to save our lives. Every one of us has that right. We cannot say that Dr. Kombe did not have that right. And as we saw already, Musando was murdered, tortured and murdered. She had a precedent, an example of what could happen. So she voted with her feet. That was her right. Now, to Honorable Wamatangi's statements about man-made crisis, all crises are man-made. I have never heard of crisis that is made by God. God does not generate crisis. And crisis is not generated by nature. All crisis is generated by man. And so this crisis has been generated primarily by those who rigged the elections. We know that. And then those who have refused to allow the IEBC to institute structural changes so that they can render a credible elections. Now, we all belong to Kenya. Nobody has more rights than anybody else in this country. So Jubilee has no more rights than we do. The IEBC has not gazetted the list of all polling stations. They have not gazetted the list of all registered voters per polling station at least 7 days before the presidential election. That is also an illegality, which means, in other words, what we are saying, this charade they are having will be nullified with the Supreme Court judges blindfolded. Now, to conclude, it is quite unfair that an innocent Kenyan was butchered, Banti Shah, 32 age only, this is a young man, a teen, a youth, was butchered by the police in Westlands under the pretext that they were dealing with some kind of terrorism at his own home. The most important place of a citizen is at a home. But what do we see? Trevor, if you open page 25 of The Nation, you will see Jubilee governors, elected leaders like Wamatangi, and some women representatives dressed in full military regalia against the law. They have not been arrested. If you go to page 13, you will see Mungiki calling themselves Nairobi Business Community, dressed in full American military fatigue. They have not been arrested. You, as the Nation Media House, recently aired, even up to yesterday, Wamatangi confessing publicly that he's a member of Chinkororo militia that kill people. Matiangi, sorry. Confessing. Matiangi, I'll correct it.
Yes.
Matiangi.
Even with the page 13, I'd like you to correct
Matiangi are very close.
that.
Let me finish.
Okay. Let him finish. He's corrected that part.
Matiangi, let me finish. Matiangi. So Matiangi.
He's corrected. Let him finish.
He's corrected.
Yes.
Matiangi confessed in public. This is the Minister of Internal Security. This is the man given the mandate by the president to protect us. And he's threatening that he will turn the other way and the police will not intervene when militias that he's a member of are committing crimes and assaulting Kenyans, even killing Kenyans, so that these people who are committing these crimes can deliver, quote unquote, votes for President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Okay.
But who has been arrested? You have two people, the Senator of Kisumu and the former Deputy Governor, they are arrested. You have a councillor from Mombasa arrested only for saying that we are not going to have elections on October 26th, and saying that President Uhuru Kenyatta will be a caretaker president on that date. You have all manner of things. So what do you have? Bottom line is this.
Yeah.
The country is not being governed in accordance with the law and the constitution as it ought to be. Our democracy is not thriving. What we have are two people determined to subvert the constitution, the rule of law, and our democracy, so that they can return Kenya back to one-party rule. And some of us have decided that we are just not going to allow them to do so.
Okay.
It does not matter how many times they threaten us. It does not matter whether they brutally kill people so that they can warn us. It does not matter whether they dress in military fatigues. We are saying no, and we are saying no until they fall.
Okay, Dr. Miguna, I'd like
Yes.
you to withdraw that statement
Which
on page
one?
13, because
Which one?
the picture we are seeing here, the person you're claiming to be Mungiki is Nairobi Business Community Chairperson,
I
Wilfred
said Nairobi
Kamau.
business community.
You cannot brand him as Mungiki unless you have evidence.
No, my friend.
And
First
that cannot be allowed on NTV
No,
platform.
first of
that
all.
you know for
No,
sure. So
listen
you have
to
to
me.
withdraw that
Listen
statement.
to me first of all.
Okay.
Are this military uniform or not?
That's besides the
No,
point.
no,
What
but
we're
I'm
talking
going to
about here
say
is the accusation.
This is military uniform.
That's okay, but
These
the
two
accusation
people-
that these people are Mungiki is
listen
what
to
my
me.
problem
The
is.
two people are supposed to be Nairobi business community.
But they are
the
not
same
Mungiki.
business community. Do you know this man on the right?
That's a question I'm
No, no,
asking
no.
you,
You know the
because
man
you're
on the
the
right.
one who mentioned that they're
I'm saying
Mungiki.
he's Mungiki.
But you have
Let
to
him
withdraw
deny
that
so.
statement.
No,
you
it is
cannot.
not up to you
You
to
cannot
deny.
prove it.
No, my friend.
I'm not denying it. This is a platform,
I'm
NTV
trying
platform.
to
You're
tell
not
you
allowed to make accusations
the
unless
Nairobi
you
business-
have evidence.
Trevor,
If you have a
No, let
close
me
look,
finish.
a
Let me
closer
just
look.
No,
of
let
this
him finish,
photograph,
because that
this
statement.
guy resembles Maguna's brother.
No, that statement
Yes.
has to be
But let me
withdrawn.
just
That
finish.
statement really has to
let
be
me just
withdrawn.
finish.
Knows he's Mungiki.
The Nairobi business community that have been parading in Nairobi are Mungiki. That is a statement of fact. So that I'm not withdrawing. They are Mungiki. We have seen them do things. We saw them in Babadogo taking oaths. These people are Mungiki.
All right,
So
we
if the nation takes the position that these guys are business people, let them produce their credentials. Until they do, I maintain these people are Mungiki.
Okay, let's get away from that conversation and let's talk about what people are saying on social media. And Usha Ose is here. Usha.
I thought Trevor,
Yes, I'm coming to you in just a bit. Let's just get a few. We are dealing with that in just a bit. I'll come to you. I'll come to both of you. Wamatangi, just one minute. Let's give the people a chance also to speak, because we've been talking the whole morning. Usha, what are they saying on social media?
Right, Trevor, the people do have a variety of responses on in regards to what's going to happen on 26th. So I'll just start sampling them. We have Kanye, who says, does NASA respect any existing constitutional institution? Evidence suggests otherwise. Their word is law, or there is going to be trouble. We have Leadership MD, who says the envoys are not interested in free and fair elections. They just want a quick fix. We also have Peter, who says from the arguments, it is very easy to tell which team is motivated by the truth and which is motivated by fanaticism. We have Harmony, who says Kenyans need to heal from the political divisions before we have elections, lest we have a president only for a section of Kenya. We have Collins, who says, this Kenya belongs to all of us. Politicians should not destroy it because of their selfish gains. We need to move on. We also have Jeff, who says, why is NASA giving the IEBC a hard time and they're not participating in the repeat presidential election? We have Senior, who says, I will not vote on 26th October, but eagerly waiting for Maraga's nullification of the pre-rigged elections. We have Daniel, who says, whether you'll vote or you'll stay home and watch movies like me, I wish you well, Kenya ni yetu, sisi sote. We also have John Gidanga, who says, IEBC is full of mischief makers, mischief that emanates from the powers that be. Chebukati and company are puppets of the government. We have Arnold, who says, I think we should agree to disagree as a nation. Uchaguzi bora ama bora uchaguzi. Think rationally. We have Leadership Front, who says, holding this election will not only prove that Constitution is meant for few Kenyans. How can it be that our voices are not heard? We have Kimani, who says, the question we should ask is, will we have a united country after 26? And I think this is actually a very important question. We also have Tom, who says, Jubilee Party is really underestimating Wafula Chebukati's statement. It will haunt them in the court. Again, we have Kay, who says the Supreme Court is still present. NASA should participate if things don't work accordingly. They present a petition. And finally, we have Collins, who says, I will exercise my democratic right to vote for the leader on 26th. No one is forced to do so. So as you can see, Trevor, mixed reactions. This is not one of those debates that has people leaning more on one side. There are people who believe that they should go to the elections. There are those who say they won't. There are those who think that the elections should be postponed. There are those who believe that Raila should just get on back to the ballot. So yeah, varied reactions. If you remember, if you haven't gotten your comment through yet, hashtag AM Live NTV, that is how you can reach us, and I would be happy to have the panel answer your questions or get your comments. Trevor.
Thanks, Usha. I know you are wading through over 500 notifications. I could see them on my screen here, but you've done a good job.
People have a lot to say about this, yes.
Thanks a lot for that. And Wamatangi, you wanted to respond before I come to Mithika.
Well, yeah,
and you heard what Kenyans are also saying.
Well, I have heard.
One of the biggest question actually is that how do you have a president for just one particular section of Kenya?
Yes, before we get to that, because I'll get to that very quickly.
Yes, very briefly, because you're running out of time.
I just wanted to probably, I want to use a fair word, but I didn't want to say really trash, but probably set aside, some of those things that have been said, because they're not worth commenting on, especially by Miguna. Trevor, I think one favor you have to do us when we come here on the show next week, kindly have some photos of the uniforms worn by Boy Scouts and Girl Guides, worn by the Salvation Army, worn by brigades in choirs, and then we can educate Miguna and Otiende Amollo on what military fatigues and uniform are, and differentiate from uniform from worn by Boy Scouts, Salvation Army, like I've said, worn by the brigades in churches, because it looks like every time when they see something that resembles a beret or whatever, then they translate that to be military fatigue. Absolutely, and I take serious offense. But although he withdrew, at him saying that Wamatangi is, you like sleeping with my name. I think it's a sign of fear. But also Akili Otiende Amollo spoke about that photo appearing on page 25. I'm not in military uniform. I'm wearing a blue shirt. I mean, that's actually I was wearing a suit. To the red beret. I only put my coat down because it was hot. I'm wearing a normal blue trouser, as you can see.
What about the beret?
I mean, by the way,
we can see it's on page 25.
That's what I've told my friends here. Everything, the next time when this gentleman wears this hat, and I don't know whether it's religious, if he wears it on the side, you will say he's wearing military uniform. Absolutely. I mean, those are things that are made, by the way, they are made by women in the village there.
So you're promoting local business.
Who are just propagating and getting people to come out and vote. So we will educate you on what is military. But let's get to the real issue, because there's a very important question there that was asked by Kenya. Yeah. Are we still going to have a united country after the 26th? And I want to answer that question clearly. And my answer from a point of law is that yes, we will have a united country. Because what unites us as a country are not the wishes of Otiende Amollo, neither the intents of Miguna Miguna, neither the aspirations of Raila Amollo Odinga, neither the dreams of NASA. What unites us as a country is our constitution. It is our laws, and our laws are very clear on what we should do as Kenyans when the time comes to go to the ballot box and decide who should lead us as the president and other positions that are provided for under our law. And as long as we remain true to our law, we will have a united front and a united country. The problem and the challenges we are facing, and Miguna said that those challenges or the problems we are in are not artificial. Then I will add another word for him then. They are artificial and selfish. I did not say they are if then that qualifies them more to what they are. Because you see, what we are dealing with now are bloated egos of people. I mean, human beings who have grown and matured through a political system that has not only favored them, but grown them into what you would describe as spoiled kids or brats for that matter, political brats. You know why? Because they don't see anything else other than themselves. And unless they get what you want, anybody else can either sacrifice their lives, they can die, anybody can burn, or any property can burn, as long as they've gotten what they want. And so I want to tell that Kenyan who asked that question, when you want to answer that question, look at our national flag as it flies. Look at our constitution. Don't listen to Miguna Miguna.
Okay.
Don't listen to Otiende Amollo. Our country is premised. It is founded on the principles of that law.
All right.
Lastly, let me
because we're running out of time.
Let me just address this very, very well, because on the 26th there is that big question. Should we, and that was one of the questions, shouldn't we then be of a thought that would intend to postpone that election or push it forward? But the question you would ask is, till when? Till when? We started with removing IEBC unconstitutionally, which was there at the behest and pressure of NASA.
Okay.
We got a new IEBC. We went to the election, and they were in this particular election on the 8th of August.
Okay.
They lost the election. After losing, other than agreeing that they have lost, they went to court, granted, and we protested and said we did not agree with that judgment, but we respected it. We said we will go for a rematch. In this particular rematch, they have again pulled out.
Okay.
If then they don't want to participate, give us an instant replay of the 8th of August.
Okay, Mithika Linturi, in closing remarks, are we going to have a united country after the 26th? You all have a minute each before we run out of time.
I think it is my prayer that divine intervention prevails so that we can have a united Kenya after the 26th. And I will be calling upon everybody that loves this country not to hinder the cause of the cause by the NASA team, really to not to turn up for elections, because that way we will not be exercising our civic duty responsibly as Kenyans.
Okay.
And I would at the same time really ask the NASA team to really go back to the Bible and act as that particular woman whose child was being taken, or whose child was to, where there was a proposal before King Solomon to have the child split so that that child would be shared by the two mothers. You know, one never or was not the mother of that kid.
Yeah.
The situation that we find ourselves in as a country is where now these two forces are struggling to tear Kenya because of their own selfish interests.
Okay.
So I'm saying let them go back to prayer, let them think what is, and see what is best for this country.
Okay.
Is it to have a country where you become a leader out of whatever dubious means, and then you have no people to lead? Or is just keep quiet and ask for God's guidance in this particular matter. I really continue asking people to pray for this nation, where we are, because the grandstanding, the kind of things that I am seeing and reading, and those people that have been given the opportunity, like Amollo, Otiende, and Miguna, to devise the superpowers of this country to see light.
Okay.
I don't think I effectively doing it.
Okay.
But I am really sorry for this country.
Okay, Dr. Miguna, closing remarks. Are we going to have a united country after 26th? 1 minute.
Yeah, Trevor, we are not going to be united through threats, through fear or compulsion. We are not going to be united just because we feel happy to be united. You have to ask the question, do every Kenyan feel that they have the freedom, they have equity, they have equality, they have justice? Justice from their state, justice from their taxes. Do they feel that the rule of law, constitutionalism, the principles that govern a democracy are uphold in Kenya? The answer is no. Can you force people to remain, as David D said, in a marriage that is not working? No, you can't. So I will tell you, you're not going to have some phantom, some mythical, some make-believe unity. If we are going to be united as a country, it must be on the cardinal values and virtues that should unite a country. If we don't have that, we will get a divorce.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Otiende.
What?
Finally.
We have never been united as a country. But if this election
Get a divorce?
goes on, wapende wasipende, as the Jubilee team is putting it, it will be a worse situation. It will be much worse. It is okay, and I understand my friend Wamatangi saying, calling us name, bloated egos and all that, because the Jubilee team believe for now things work for them. Because the Jubilee team, propelled by fundamentally two communities, have had that advantage. And it is okay for them to continue because they have that advantage. Unfortunately, if situations like this is what calls for statesmanship, and if the president were being a statesman, he would step back and say it is more important to unite this country than to force an election that is not all-inclusive. If it goes on as they're trying, two things will happen. One is that of the 19 million registered voters, all you need to know is wait for those who will turn up. Those will be the supporters of President Uhuru Kenyatta. All those who won't turn up will be supporting Raila Amolo Odinga. That's number one. So wait for that. Two, you will now hear more fundamental calls, more fundamental than just calls for reforming IBC or legitimate elections, because it will mean that we need to fundamentally re-examine our existence. Now, you avoid those things by being inclusive, but when you disregard a section of society, then the calls to rethink the unity, the calls for a referendum on issues like separation, then will become alive, and it is unfortunate. All right.
Thanks for making time for all of you, Dr. Miguna Miguna, lawyer, and also running for Nairobi gubernatorial seat as an independent candidate. Honorable Otiende Amollo, Ombudsman Emeritus and Rarieda Member of Parliament. Honorable Kimani Wamatangi, Kiambu Senator, and Honorable Mithika Linturi, Meru Senator. Thanks for making time, and thank you for all the feedback. We've been seeing them coming in. There are hundreds of them, and like I said, until the last day, we'll be right here to walk you through these murky waters in these unprecedented times, every second, every minute of every day. My name is Trevor Ombija. Always a pleasure having you with us.